Order. Read the affidavit of posting. This agenda was posted in the office of county clerk on the 27th day of April, 2020. Notice was sent to the Westman Daily News, Express News, WIBD, WNBZ Radio, WTKM Radio, My Community Now, Hartford Times Press, DQS, Statesman, and Milwaukee Journal. We have a quorum, I believe. It's not. They can see. Okay, we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Bring in the rear, right? Okay, we'll begin with the consent agenda. Entertain a motion.
Would move
Motion.
Motion by, say your name with the motion, please.
Tim Mahalik.
And
Second by Dennis Callen.
Second Schleif. Any corrections, deletions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, we'll move immediately into the public hearing. I'll have the clerk read the notice.
Public hearing, 7:30 a.m. The petition of Reef Point Resort Corp., care of Dan Knoll, for a conditional use permit for associated filing, grading, and excavating of greater than 15,000 square feet within 300 feet of the ordinary high water mark for proposed condominium in the Shoreland zoning district location. The petition of Reef Point Resort Corp., care of Dan Knoll, Town of Hartford, address 3412 Lake Drive, Hartford, Wisconsin 53027. And 3416 Lake Drive, Hartford, Wisconsin 53027.
Okay, before we enter into the public comment section, I just want to make a statement so everyone understands what we're actually looking at here today. This is a public hearing conducted by the Executive Committee of the Washington County Board of Supervisors. The purpose of this public hearing is to consider the application for a conditional use permit for the Kettle Ridge condominium development under Chapter 275, Sub 10 of the County Code. A conditional use permit is required because the development will require grading, filling, or excavating of more than 15,000 square feet within 300 feet of the ordinary high water mark of a navigable body of water. This is the only issue before this committee this morning. Approval of the condominium development itself is not before this committee. Comments relating to the approval of the condominium itself will not be entertained. The Land Use and Planning Committee representative will give a presentation to the committee on the issue of the conditional use permit. Following that presentation, the public will be invited to speak. Comments from the public will be limited to 2 minutes in order to allow enough time for everyone who wishes to speak to have an opportunity to do so. Again, comments are limited to the issue of the conditional use permit. We ask that everyone please be respectful to one another throughout this process. Remarks that are disparaging, personal in nature, or irrelevant to the topic of the conditional use permit will not be permitted. The public hearing is not a debate. The committee will not entertain or answer questions during the hearing, and the remarks must be directed to the committee and not to the applicant or county staff. Upon conclusion of the public hearing, the committee will debate and discuss the application and make a decision. So I'll turn it over to Phil Gaudet, who will give a brief presentation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Reef Point Resort is asking for approval to switch uses from currently what is a bar, boat launch, and boat rental business to a condominium. And they are creating a parcel to do this, which is about 3.3 acres, a little bit more than that. And as part of the development, there will be 8 units or buildings constructed on the parcel. And 2 of those buildings will front Pike Lake and will be 75 feet or more back from the lake. The frontage on the lake is about 255 feet. And there is no floodplain or wetland issues with this proposal. Most of this 3.3 acres will be graded as part of this development. And there will be a separate permit from the Land and Water Conservation Division for an erosion control and stormwater permit that is covering all the details of all the filling, grading, and excavating on the parcel. This particular hearing today is triggered because of the county shoreline zoning ordinance, and as the chairman said previously, there's more than 15,000 square feet of grading being done. So that is the reason for this hearing versus the other permit that is needed in this project. As far as staff is concerned in the Land Use Division of the Planning and Parks Department, this project will meet the requirements of the shoreline zoning ordinance for filling, grading, and excavating. And as long as the Land and Water Conservation Division approves their erosion control and stormwater permit, the Land Use Division would have no concerns regarding this project. So that's what I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. What we'll do is we'll open the public hearing. We'll begin by, is there anyone speaking here to speak in favor of the project?
Can we go in order of the numbers they have?
Oh, sure. You call it out. You can call out from over there.
You can just go number 1, number 2.
Okay.
They're on different sheets. They go with that sheet.
Okay. Greg Ermer, please state your name again and your address.
Greg Urban, 442 Lake Drive. Just neighbors and people that contacted me just had a couple concerns. We've got a garage built across the street and there's a railroad track line.
Would you ask him to speak up?
If you want to, the microphone's right here.
If you want to just, why don't you can step forward if you like. Or you can just walk over, that's fine too.
You don't want to back it, yeah.
Okay,
And there's a railroad track that used to go through the old swamp across the street. And our neighbor, 35 feet away across the street, had to be 25 feet off of this railroad zone. And it went through lots 1 and 12 and 13 through the bar back in the day. And we just didn't know if the railroad still owns them rights, because he had to be 25 feet off when he built his garage. I have Washington County deeds checking into it as we speak, trying to dig up the archive records. Usually a tail tie sign of a railroad is when all the utilities jump on it. There's like 4 utility right of ways on that lot. So they're checking on that. And that's probably one of the main things. Otherwise, everybody sort of likes the concept, but just so everything's done right and up to par and, you know, all legit, so. But that was about it for me. Thank you.
okay. These are listed 1 through 5.
Yeah.
If you want to just go. Okay. Rodney Hinkfuss,
No, he pretty much just covered what I was.
okay, you're good,
So I'm good, yep. He just
Okay.
covered what I wanted,
okay,
because I'm the one who owns the property that had to get a permit.
okay,
And they made me stay 25 feet off the train trestle,
okay,
which that goes right by me.
When?
And I was just concerned about the drainage, because there's already issues with drainage all by my house already. That's all I'm really concerned.
okay. All right, thank you. Okay, Dan Canola.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, you can
Step
go back.
up.
Yeah,
Right.
come up just closer.
All right, and thank you for convening this meeting in these challenging circumstances. And I'm here as the owner of the property, looking to steer this property to become a developable site. And so that's my goal. I've been operating as the Reef Point Resort for 31 years now. And quite honestly, I'm trying to look for some exit strategies and a path towards retirement. So this would be it in the current times that we're in. I obviously have a business that is not even viable at this point in time. And in the last couple of years, I have made efforts to market that property and the business as is, haven't received any offers to operate as an ongoing business. The land value certainly has exceeded the value of the business. And so I am here to pursue that option of developing the property into a residential development. And with me today, I don't know if I know Dirk Wilt is here, who's a consultant and a developer and builder with Cobblestone Builders, has been consulting with me. And Paul Jenswald, I believe, is with us. In some capacity, he would be the chief engineer with Yaki and Yaki, so they would certainly be available to answer technical questions. With that, thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Dirk Wilt and Steve Mistel Wilt.
I don't need to speak.
Okay,
I just signed it.
okay. Can you just state your name and your address again?
Oh, Dirk Wilt.
You want to come, why don't you come up a little closer?
Sure. Dirk Wilt, N88W16791 Main Street, Menominee Falls. Just reiterating what Dan has said, his exit strategy with the Reef Point, trying to make a nice residential development out of the property. My only concern today is I saw up on your screen that our chief engineer was having some difficulties. So I don't know if he's connected in with us, but I don't even know how we would figure that out. I don't know. There was like a question on your screen that he was not getting, he was having difficulty with the video. So I just want to make sure that if any questions need to be addressed to Mr. Paul Jenswald from Yaki Yaki, that is properly being received.
We were muted during much of the morning.
Okay.
So a lot of people were saying they couldn't hear. Well, that's true because we were muted.
Okay. So everything should be.
Yep.
I mean, I realize this is all new to everybody, so.
Yep. If there was something with the system, I would know that.
Okay.
So it's localized.
Okay. All right. I guess that's at this point all I have to say to everybody. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. John Monson?
Yeah. We do have a water problem in front of Dan's property. This is my property. That garden in there, it's 20 inches. Right now, there's about 18 inches of water back there. It spans the Bennett's property, which you guys agreed to build. When I moved in there, that was an empty lot. Built a house there. Now we have that's where all the water drained from the cornfields above High Street, the woods, trailer park, all comes down through a field to my backyard. And it sits there and then it goes down underneath 5 feet below my property is solid clay. Bennett's house, which was on that empty property I was on, of course, when it was empty, they have clay. I watched them put the sewer lines in at Mike's house, which is right to the north, right out of Dan's. I watched them put their sewer lines. They go down 3 feet, they hit solid clay. Everything above that is your sand and rocks like that, your Kittle Moraine loam. So he's gonna, like the Bennett's, put a house up where it all drained. I have a water problem now for 20 years. He's gonna put up condominiums across the street. That water seeps into the ground, goes into groundwater, and everything goes towards the lake. That's my complaint. All right. You need a copy of that photo?
Yeah, we can add it to the record. Okay.
It happens every year, 2 to 3 times a year.
Sure. Do we want to have him?
Well, I don't think at this point it's really a question and answer, but
Okay.
at the end, if there's any comments
Sure.
you want to ask for,
Okay.
we certainly can do
Okay.
that.
Yeah, it'd be nice if we could get a copy of this.
For me, or I don't have a
I'll just
negative
Okay.
anymore.
We'll take a photo of it.
Yeah, every year it's that way. I got 18, 20 inches of water in my backyard. And you can see from the Bennett's, this is taken from the Bennett's house, goes almost all the way up to barn back here, and Willie's front yard, it comes within 15 feet of his house,
So the picture taken,
is from the Bennett's from the south.
okay. So is that today's photo or?
No, this is, I don't know what year it was, but it's just an average.
Because we had a significant amount of rainfall last couple of days, so,
Yeah, so,
okay. Thank you.
Do you want to see that?
I need another.
the water situation. That's what we're here for.
Right, that's a big situation.
Okay, Gerald Ziegler. If we could just restate your name and.
I'm Gerald Ziegler, 3374 Lake Drive in Hartford. I would think as long as we follow the stormwater management, I think this is a worthy project for the neighborhood. It'll reduce our traffic, both on the lake and surface roads. I think that it'll contribute to the tax base of the town of Hartford. That's also a good thing. And it's probably the best alternate use for that property. We're mostly residential. And I'd like to see the Pike Lake areas go full residential. Thank you.
Irvin Weiss. And if you, when you come up, just state your name again and your address.
Okay, Irvin Weiss, address is 3368 Lake Drive. My problem with the thing is really aesthetics. I don't know what he's got in mind. First of all, in his defense, he has a right to build anything he wants within reason on his property. It's his property, he should have a right to do it, plain and simple, okay? But we get back to aesthetics. I don't want to see giant towering buildings like we have down the road a little ways. An individual got it slipped 10 feet past the zoning requirements. I don't want to see 8 buildings looking like that. And that's my biggest concern. It's a little residential area. We don't need it to look like downtown, well, even downtown Hartford's getting ridiculous about it. So let's keep the buildings short and more quaint looking, if you want to use that term. Okay?
Thank you. Next is James Williams.
I am James Williams. I live about 5 houses to the south of the property. Address is 3392 Lake Drive. And I'm in support of what Dan is planning to do there. I think it's the best option for the property. I did submit a letter pretty much saying what I'm talking. Yeah, that's it right there. I can recognize my signature. But I think it's the best option for the property. I do, as long as he meets all the county ordinances, the town ordinances. You know, I'm fine with what he's planning on doing.
Okay. You want me to read that into the record then? Or is it? Huh?
Why don't you
Okay.
read it?
Okay, I'm gonna read the Mr. Williams' letter into the record. Reference petition of Root Point Resort Corp. To whom it may concern, this is to attest that we support the petition of Root Point Resort Corp. For conditional use permit for associated filling, grading, and excavating of greater than 15,000 square feet within 300 feet of the ordinary high water mark for proposed condominium project in the Shoreline zoning district. We have lived at 3392 Lake Drive for over 20 years. We believe this development is the best option for this property in our neighborhood. The development must be required to conform to all current county and town construction ordinances. We do believe the project will improve property values in the neighborhood and reduce road and lake traffic. So it's written into the record. I think I have everybody that has signed in to speak. Is there any other people that wish to speak to this?
That's online.
That are online?
Yeah.
Okay, you're gonna handle that.
Yep, so Paul Jens Wold should be able to talk now. He unmutes himself.
All right, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
All right, one thing I wanted to point out is that our design, the existing lot does funnel some water to the northeast and going into some properties before it gets to the lake. What our design does is it captures a lot of that water that's currently heading that direction, and it redirects it directly using some storm sewer directly to the lake. So that will help alleviate any flooding problems going to properties to the northeast.
Okay.
Lori Morgan, while there, she can unmute herself and talk. She should be able to.
What's her name? Lori Mergenthaler.
Sometimes we get into a unmute fight. May not be connected to audio. Leave her there. So Lori, you're available. If you can unmute, you're available, but we'll go on down.
Okay.
Rodney Hinkvis was here, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Lisa Robinson can unmute and talk.
Hello, this is Lisa Robinson, 3462 Lake Drive. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
So I'm in favor of Dan putting residential properties on the area, but I live northeast of it and we do have a water problem. So I guess my question is, based on the plans that were submitted, to grade and excavate for 11 properties, how will you control the water? And how will you control our fragile sewer system that is already overwhelmed? When I bought the house 3 years ago, I was told by the city workers or the town utility workers that have the pumping station across from my house that when the sewer was put in to protect Pike Lake, most of the homes on the, or all residential, smaller homes with one bath. Those smaller homes are now being taken down for large properties with 2-3 bathrooms each, and it's already overwhelming the system. So will the stormwater be separate from that system? And if the plans are correct in that there will be 3 duplexes, so for a total of 6 families with 3 bathrooms each, and 5 single residencies on that property, how will you contain and not overwhelm our system? And how will you protect our lake from runoff from that many driveways and from that excavation project?
Okay, thank you.
Don, that's all I have for.
Did you want to bring back?
I'm going to call Lori, but that's, if anybody else wants to talk on this topic, they can click raise their hand.
Okay. Did you want to have the developer speak again to the questions that you just raised? Paul Jenswold?
All right, this is Paul Jenswald, Yankee.
If you just repeat what you said before. So.
Yeah, so as far as the stormwater and the sanitary sewer are indeed separate systems. The stormwater, we're handling it using 3 bioretention basins, and there is an area that goes to those properties to the northeast, but this design will intercept that, or at least a large portion of it, much more than what's going there now. We're going to be rerouting that down to the lake through using some storm sewer. So that should help alleviate problems going to the northeast.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other discussion?
Okay. She doesn't want to speak.
Has the DNR weighed in, knowing that we're adjacent to the 678 acre Kettle Moraine State Forest?
We'll just add that question to the record. We won't be answering the questions at this time. So that'll be added to the record to be for the future. Thank you then. Is there any other comments or any?
Everybody who's registered to speak has
Has
been
spoken already?
spoken or I call.
Okay. All right. If there's no further discussion for public comment.
I got a public comment. The sewers in our neighborhood are sewage sewers. That pump station is a sewage pump station. That person was talking about this. We have sewage, storm sewers, okay? And the few that we have, those are for clean out. We don't have no drain storm sewers in the neighborhood. We only have sewage sewers.
Okay.
No, we have storm sewers. I'm sure where they are, and they drain right into the pipeline.
Oh, you mean the culverts?
No, I'm talking actually sewers. You look for, the nearest one here, is where we call it train house. You look there, there's a sewer there, and it drains into the lake. There's also another one by the yacht.
Okay.
Straight into the
Yeah, but they're already having issues with the drainage.
Well,
Everybody's aware of it. That's the main problem.
My problem with not only that, if you take away some of this land, what do we do with the salt that comes off the
Right,
road?
we're moving on from the
I totally get
public
it.
discussion now. Thank you all for coming. We'll move on in the agenda to are we gonna be discussing it?
Yes.
So it's open up to the committee now for discussion.
Done.
Sorry,
Sure.
Christie, or Supervisor Dice, this is Jamie Ludovic. I just want to clarify for you as you're having your dialogue that Phil Gaudet is on the phone as it relates to Shoreland, and Paul Sebo, who is the issuing authority on the stormwater permit, is also on the phone. So those individuals are available if you have questions. Need a motion.
I need a motion. Motion by Supervisor Dice.
Second.
I would, Mr. Chairman, I would move that we give approval of the conditional use permit with the condition that an erosion control and stormwater permit be granted by the Land and Water Conservation Division prior to any filling, grading, or excavating on the lot.
I would second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on the matter? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Tim, do you have a question? Sorry.
There, can you hear me?
Yeah.
No.
Thank you. I just again wanted to speak in support of what this, it looks like it's going to pass, but I did want to go on record as supporting this moving forward as the best use of that property if Mr. Knodel is actually stepping back from wanting to run a business there. And I can understand his difficulty in running a business because basically with a bar restaurant currently he is closed. So I can understand his at least current unviability, and the point that an individual made that if you're looking at controlling traffic on the lake, this I think would be a wonderful way to do it. I know, Dan, I'm sure that it would be quality that would be built, so you're not going to have to worry about the aesthetics, because the real value of the property is obviously it's the fact that it's adjacent to the lake, and people who are going to spend that kind of money to get that close to the lake are going to want something that's pretty decent looking. As to the comment about the city of Hartford not being quaint, I disagree. I wanted to go on record with that as well. So, thank you.
Right. All those, seeing no further discussion, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next on the agenda, we want to do the preliminary plat review. Yeah. Right. Action item B, preliminary plat review, Morning Meadows subdivision, Village of Jackson. We are the objecting authority.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Who made the motion, Chris?
Light and Bossert.
Okay.
So what's the motion?
It's
Do not object.
Is there any further discussion on the matter? Raise your hand if you have something so you can see. Okay.
Just like a normal meeting, they
Yeah.
can talk. I mean, they're all on
Okay.
mute.
All right. Seeing none, all those in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Back to discussion items. Talk about standing committee meetings and dates. Initially, executive committee is first on the docket. I would be recommending the third Wednesday at 4:30 PM.
I would also be in favor of that and would appreciate it for my job. Obviously, I'm coming in from work right now today, and this is going to cause a little bit of hardship. I'd rather not have to take a day off every time I do a meeting. So I would appreciate that if anybody could help support this. It would certainly make things a lot better. I'll make it work one way or another, but this would definitely be a huge help for me. So thank you for your consideration.
Mr. Chairperson?
Yes.
So you're considering the meetings for May, so they can discuss in committee, continuing with that?
Yep. So we'll meet on our,
May 20th
May-
at 4:30 PM.
yeah, we'll be meeting at May 20th at 4:30 PM. For executive, and then we'll set it in stone then.
Yes, yes.
Okay, public safety committee meeting.
Tim?
Thank you. I'll be honest, and I can definitely understand what Dennis is talking about regarding jobs. I had to take, especially when the the county board meetings were in the morning, had to take off a half a day every time for years in order to be able to do it. So burned through a lot of vacation time doing that. However, and it will probably pass, and I understand that. I will vote for it in deference to it, but just wanted to make it on the record. I prefer a morning meeting, if we can, rather than something in the afternoon, because I don't live in West Bend or right there. I'm half hour away in Hartford, so it's I'm having to cut out earlier in order to do this. So it just helps me to be in the morning, but I'll defer to the wishes of the chair, and it looks like a majority of the individuals.
Thank you.
Can I pipe in with something?
Sure.
For now, we have relaxed our rules on being able to call in. Do we anticipate, I think a lot of businesses going forward are going to change with people working from home now and finding out how it works or if it works. Will we be changing back when we get out of this pandemic thing? Will we be changing back to having people be able to call in maybe quarterly or something, not just once a year like we previously had?
Yeah, we're gonna be addressing the remote attendance especially for committee meetings. I think right now, having that limit on it maybe isn't the best, but we'll talk about it and figure out what works best for everybody.
I mean, as we get better at doing a meeting like this, maybe it is the wave of the future.
It may very well be that we lift that restriction, that you can call in at pretty much whenever you can call in. I mean, it's important for people to attend. Chris?
We had this discussion on executive this past term. And my only concern was I really appreciate the video as well as the audio rather than just hearing voices, because you can't see people's facial features when they're talking. You can't, how do you get somebody's attention if it's just audio without shouting? I have something to say. At least with video, you can see somebody raising their hand or speaking up. And I think the technology is there. We just have to search it out and get it.
For the purposes of this committee, we do have this platform for a year. We did purchase what you guys are currently using for 12 months.
Oh, great.
Public, we'll move on to Public Safety Committee. Do we want to have the other committees meet at their typical time and then make the decision then?
I would prefer that actually, because not knowing for sure who the people on my committee will be and not knowing whether they work or not, I would prefer to wait until after the first meeting and then set it around what works for them. Since I'm retired, it's easier for me to say yay or nay to anything that's proposed. So I'm one of those lucky people.
I would agree with that.
I would also agree with that as well. I think it's a good idea for each committee on their own to decide their way, for their people.
Okay.
I'm also in agreement.
Okay, great. So then we will just set up the meetings under their normal schedule.
Do we want to know?
Yeah, why don't you, Mary, read off what they are now?
So the Public Safety Committee will meet on the third Wednesday, which is May 20th at 7:30 a.m. Human Services Committee be May 21st at 8:30 a.m. Administrative Committee, third Thursday, which will be May 21st at 4:30 p.m. Public Works Committee, fourth Wednesday, which will be May 27th at 7:30 a.m. And the Land Use and Planning Committee, fourth Thursday, May 28th at 7:30 a.m.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd like the permission, if I could, please, to poll the members of the Land Use Committee to find out from them whether early morning or later in the afternoon is going to be a better time for them. Keep it at the same date.
Yeah, you can do it at that same date. When you have your first meeting, then you can pull it, or you can, if you want to talk with your members, you can talk with your members also.
Since we're a month out at this point in time, I suggest we've got plenty of time in the meantime to poll the members to find out such that May meeting would be set at a time that's most conducive for everyone.
Well, we have to wait until the chairman sends out the list of who's on what committee, right?
Yeah, that should be sent out shortly. We have it, so.
Okay.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay. All right, let's move on. Brad is going to give an update on our involvement in the legislature's lawsuit against the Department of Health Services.
You don't have to move.
Okay.
So I filed a report regarding this matter yesterday, and I'm not sure if anybody's had a chance to see that yet. But essentially what's going on from the county's perspective is, as you're probably aware, the legislature filed suit against Department of Health Services Secretary Designee Andrea Palm regarding emergency order number 28. And since number 28 was issued, they also issued emergency order number 34. And the legislature is essentially arguing that those orders are invalid because they were an overreach of the authority of the department. We had received an invitation to file an amicus brief in that particular lawsuit, meaning a friend of the court brief. We wouldn't be intervening as interested parties necessarily, but we would be sharing our perspective on the validity of those orders with the Supreme Court. So after having a discussion with the county executive and the county board chair, I drafted a brief with the assistance of my deputy county attorney and associate assistant county attorney doing research and so forth. And we filed our brief with the Supreme Court yesterday, taking the position that we believe emergency orders 28 and 34 are overreaching, they are invalid, but from our perspective, it's because they interfere with the county's ability to exercise its own home rule and local control over managing the crisis. And so that brief was filed ahead of the deadline yesterday. I believe the legislature has until today to file a response to the secretary's brief, and then the Supreme Court will take up the case immediately after that. I'm not anticipating any sort of oral argument or any need to do anything further than what we've already done. And I'm not sure when the Supreme Court will act or how they're going to deal with the case, but we are involved. We didn't speak on behalf of any other county. It was really our perspective in terms of our interpretation of chapter 252 of the statutes that indicate that home rule really is what's to happen in public health emergencies. And so we shared that perspective with the Supreme Court.
Any questions from the?
Yep. Brad, this is Supervisor Bassert. I want to thank you for your endeavors on this. I like that approach. I look at the state of Wisconsin right now. Obviously, there's a lot of community spread in Milwaukee County, Brown County, Dane County. And we have an entire region where there's a lot of counties that have 0 cases or 1 or 2 cases. So the idea that this should really be dealt with on a county level, so each county can have a plan specific to its county and its current situation makes a lot of sense to me. So I like that approach. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I think Brad made it clear in his brief that DHS is to act in more of a support of the county. And obviously, our county is handling the COVID breakout extremely well. We're doing all our contact tracing, every breakout we've had, we've been able to identify and stem it. So we're actually doing very well. Thank you very much for the DHS to not even be involved with Washington County. So thanks, Brad. I read it and it was like, you really did an awesome job on it.
Thank you. Proud to be able to do that on behalf of the county.
Any other discussion? Okay, we'll move on to action items, the mandatory furlough program. This will be a little bit different in a motion. We'll need a motion and a second to endorse the mandatory furlough policy and forward to the county board for their endorsement.
I would motion to endorse the policy.
Second.
Second by Schleif, Kelly. Josh, are you on? You want to speak to it at all?
I am on, yes, thank you. So hopefully everybody hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. So hopefully everybody's had a chance to look at the policy. First, let me just start by saying that I take no pleasure in having to present this to you today. And as I communicated to our employees on a similar Zoom call over the course of the last about week or so, I think I've done 3 or 4 of them. I am sorry to have to announce this publicly and announce this to them last week. But given today, I just saw it roll across my phone screen that another 3.8 million have filed for unemployment across the country, bringing the total close to 30 million unemployed across the nation. And when you take a look at what we believe some of the impacts are going to be at the county level, it feels like something that we need to do. So I asked our finance director, Margie Hammers, to do an analysis on our finances for the rest of the 2020 budget year. Asked her for that about 2 weeks ago or so now. And her preliminary analysis indicates that the county is going to have a shortfall in 2020 of about $3 to $5 million. As you all know, that's very significant. Generally our gap, which in a current budget year has been managed, but generally it's $1 million. So up to 5 times that size, an operating deficit. So this is one of several components that we're working towards to mitigate that. There is ostensibly a hiring freeze. Obviously, there's exceptions to that in the sheriff's department and our nursing home. We're also contemplating capital improvement projects that can be frozen or postponed and other expenses of the like. But this is the most significant for obvious reasons. not the least of which is Washington County, to the best of my knowledge, and maybe Second Vice Chair Dice can speak to this more. But to the best of my knowledge, we haven't done anything like this in the past. I communicated to staff, and I'll say the same to you. I feel like this is a prudent step, and the sooner the better. I think this gives both the employee and the county a maximum amount of flexibility. As you see in the policy, we're asking employees to take one day at a time from now until, I guess it's May 7th until the end of the year, December 31st. The administration of that policy is a work in progress. So there may be some tweaks conceptually to the policy that need to be made. But what I'm asking of the committee and the county board as a legislative body is to join together with me as the executive branch at this point in time and indicate that this is the correct path forward. And so we're asking for that motion that you made to endorse it here at the executive committee level. And then we'll also ask for the same endorsement from the legislative body, the county board meeting on May 13th. So I believe Todd Scott, our HR director, as well as Dave Barber, our director of administration, I believe they are on the call. And they can answer specific questions about the detail of the policy and why it was written, how it was written, and things of that nature if you have such questions. Otherwise, as county executive, I'm seeking your support. Thank you.
Supervisor Schleif.
First of all, does this apply to hourly as well as salaried people?
Yes, it does. It applies to both. And if you take a peek, I know for those who maybe haven't had a chance to read it that are watching, it applies to all departments with some discretion given to the medical examiner's office, the sheriff's office, and Samaritan. But yes,
Yeah,
it does apply to salary and hourly.
Okay, I think we should also think about the county board adding into this that we'll take a week off too, or dock ourselves a week pay or something like that. So it's a move of support.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's an appropriate discussion at the county board level. And I'll just let you know that I haven't talked to all of the elected department heads, but I can tell you that I'm from talking to Sheriff Schulteis, I know he both intend to take that same type of 5-day furlough. Or the equivalent, I guess.
Okay.
Chairman?
Harry?
Yeah, in regards to what Supervisor Schleif has just said, I'd like to make a comment, please. The employees of Washington County have no peers. They are the absolute finest that any government body could ever find. In this situation, we're not asking for, but rather imposing a rather onerous burden on them by enacting this pay cut. I firmly believe that the supervisors of the county should also share in carrying out some of the financial burden that the county will have to endure. And while it may not involve a great deal of money, I encourage the supervisors to forego at least 1 month's compensation between now and the end of the year for the compensation they receive for service on the Board of Supervisors. This is done in the spirit of letting our employees know that as supervisors, we stand in support of them and appreciate the sacrifices furlough program will mean. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Supervisor Dice.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have absolutely no objection to what Supervisor Mary just said. I would agree with those comments, and I think it is appropriate to bring this up before the entire county board. I am a past employee of the county. As you well know, I worked with the county for 30 years. When we went through the recession years, and there were a number of years where employees did not get any raises at all. As hard as that was, after the county being so generous in prior years, I think the majority of the people that worked for me at the time were just glad that they had a job. And I think that's one of the positives we can take out of this furlough is that we aren't laying off anyone. They will have a job, and that in itself is security for so many of them. So I'm sure they realize that these times are extraordinary, that we take no pleasure in what we have to do. And yet we appreciate their hard work, the good job that they're doing, and a furlough we're all willing to sacrifice, including, I hope, the county board supervisors, as well as all the elected officials, to get us through these hard times. So I think the policy that's being recommended is fair. It addresses the concerns that employees may have. And the best part is they know they still have a job. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Mahalik.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And I can understand where the concerns would be. I appreciate the comments by Supervisor Dice and Supervisor Mary, but there are those of us who are not retired. This issue, if you will, with the COVID-19 has grabbed up and taken my full-time position. So other than the 2 little part-time positions I'm paid for, I do not have a salary coming in. So I am suffering much more than some of you who are already on a pension. In that regard, if we're going to do anything like that, saying everybody wants to try and give our money away, rather than a month, we're asking a week. Okay, 1 week of what we do, just to give people an idea, is $127 if you round up. We get paid $127 a week, which is 1/52nd with 52 weeks of the $6,600 that we're paid for an entire year. Needless to say, with this COVID thing, especially those of us who are the chairs of a committee, I mean, that gives us the county board meeting, that gives us an administrative, or well, for me, the administrative committee meeting for which I have to prepare, and the meeting that I have to do, and an additional call to set up an agenda, plus these executive committee meetings. We're not paid a whole lot. And for those of us who right now are looking for a job during a pandemic, it can be a real strain. So, I mean, if push comes to shove, a week, I think, would be more than enough. If anybody else wants to give a month, that's up to them. Like I said, if you're sitting there on a pension, it's a lot easier than if you're sitting in my chair. So please understand, I'm willing to forego even more pain, but I think it's for show. And frankly, I need the bucks. So I'm being extraordinarily honest on this. Please don't vote to give away my money right now as I'm sitting on working for unemployment. Thank you.
Well, as I understand it, this would be a voluntary and anonymous. And if we would do something where we would fix we'd actually have to change the ordinance. Is that?
You could reduce the board's salary.
You could.
Back when the recession occurred and supervisors decided to forego some of their pay, they passed a resolution indicating supervisors who chose to do that could do that in an amount they were comfortable with, and so forth. So there are other ways, and there are several ways you can approach this. I can assist with that.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be, what you are at financially to make your own decision. So it's, if you decide to, if someone wants to throw their whole paycheck into back to the county, that's up to each individual supervisor to do so. And if it's anonymous, I think that's appropriate. And so we have some other supervisors. Marcy Bishop, Supervisor Bishop.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. The overall plan makes sense. I do have one concern in one part. It says employees will not accrue PTO during the furlough. They are taking a day off without pay. My previous job, when we took a day off without pay to help out when we were slow, we did accrue our benefits, our PTO, because we were helping the hospital. We still maintained our benefits. So that is one point that I have a little bit of a problem with. Otherwise, the plan looks very good.
Josh,
that was all.
Josh, did you want to say anything to that, or?
No, I don't have anything to say about it unless Todd or Dave do.
Todd or Dave, anything to add?
Mr. Chairman?
Uh,
Mr. Chairman, this is Todd. I can speak to that quickly if that's okay.
Okay.
So our county policy says that paid time is eligible to accrue PTO. This would be unpaid time, so it wouldn't be eligible. So the policy is written consistent with what our practices are.
Okay.
Any other supervisors on the phone that wish to make any comments?
They need to raise their hand.
Raise your hand
Or ask.
or raise your hand.
Pam said this, but
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Schleif?
it'd be helpful to know how much money we're talking about. First of all, it would be difficult to change the policy, but I can anticipate we'll talk about this in the full county board meeting. And, if we're talking about $10 a person or something, then it's no big deal. I mean, if the people are out of work, yes, it's a big deal, but like Chris said before, Supervisor Dice, people still have a job. So, that's the big picture thing to look at in all this.
Josh?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm not certain if the question was with regard to county board supervisors or the program as a whole. I'll answer it as a whole because we talked about this as employees and it was certainly part of our thinking. And I saved this till the end intentionally as it is certainly a difficult thing, but not always our very first thing that we look at is saving money. It's about the people first. So, but it is a great question and it is aimed at, in part, helping us save budget money. And that our first analysis of that, and Aaron Dahl, who works in our human resources department, has done the specific data mining to determine this. But our first look at it is we could save up to about $500,000. There's some considerations for a number of different things, but we're looking somewhere between that $250,000 and $500,000 for 2020, just for the employee side. I can't speak to the county board supervisor side.
My question wasn't with respect to that. It was respect to not getting PTO for that week they're taking off. I wouldn't think is a significant amount of money.
Well, yeah, that's a great question. We'd have to, why don't we have the HR team take a look at that and get you the answer by the county board meeting, if that's okay.
I mean, I don't think personally it's a significant amount,
Well, could
but
be.
I'm sure we'll have the question in the meeting.
Yeah, you're right.
It depends upon how many hours that the employee accrues per week in PTO. I don't know the formula offhand.
Yeah, it's complicated because I believe there's 4 different categories of accrual. The one that when I was county administrator at the end of my contract that I was in, we accrued 10.77 hours every 2 weeks or something like that. So half of that, 5 1/4, 5 1/3 hours, and then that's what you would miss out on. And then that, whatever that amount is, times their hourly rate. But I mean, we can do that analysis and have just some examples for you at the county board meeting.
Thank you.
Supervisor Mahalik, you're next, Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If this is really for saving money for the county because of the financial situation that we're in versus just for show. And I believe it's the former rather than the latter. Then I think the PTO issue is something that we have to look at as part of the savings that the county is looking to make. If we already have a policy in place through HR that Todd Scott has just enumerated, I think it's important for us to stick with that. We really have to make sure that we're doing all that we can to keep the county afloat. Supervisor Dice made a wonderful comment in the fact that you know, a lot of people were happy to have a job, and is sitting here with somebody who doesn't have a job full time. Please understand that for those of us, and now like County Executive Showman mentioned, you know, another 3 million people have filed for unemployment. That just raised or brought out. So, you know, we're at about 30 million people across the country. Understand the pain that is being felt by many of the individuals in Washington County. And this, I think, is a very small way of being able to do it. Realize, too, that every one of us got a check for $1,200 from the government. Okay, or most of us. I'm assuming that most, well, yeah, for those of you who make over, what, $100 and some thousand a year or something, I think you may not have, or your family's income, but you know, for a lot of the people here in Washington County, you know, got it. I'm sure a lot of the county employees got it. So it's not like it hasn't been offset. We don't want some of the things that are being moved forward by the federal or the state government to be a windfall to those people who have jobs in government. And I think this is one of the ways that we can represent to the folks that all of the people in public, you know, who don't have to worry about losing their jobs like you do in the private sector. One way that we can actually come together and say, hey, we're all in this together. So let's not worry too much about the things about PTO for 1 week. I think that we then are starting to make it look like it's more show than go, and the go is to save money, and this is a part of saving money, and we already have, again, the idea in place that if it's a non-paid furlough, that the PTO does not accrue during that time. So I just ask you to all keep that in mind, please. Thank you.
We lost Chris, but Brian Gallagher.
Okay, Brian, Supervisor Gauss. Supervisor Gauss, can you unmute?
He did.
Oh.
I wonder if he has a mute on his microphone.
No, can't hear you, Brian, if you're trying to speak. I hope he just dropped off.
Still there.
Am I still there? Okay, Supervisor Newman.
Hold on.
Hold on. Okay.
Now he should be able to unmute.
Okay, Supervisor Newman, you can unmute.
You hear me?
Can hear you, yep. Gotcha.
Hey, good morning. I just had a question about the statement of who this applies to. It's lists the medical examiner's office, the Samaritan Sheriff's Department. In the next sentence there, it says the county executive may also exclude certain positions or departments in order to ensure continuity of the operations. That's kind of an open statement there, so I'm kind of wondering who that would refer to and how that decision is made.
I thank you for the question. Good question. The short answer is this really applies to just a couple of departments, and we have just a few of them that have just 1, 2, 3, 4 people total. And if and when you're to ask such departments to take furloughs, you may in effect be having them close entirely, which we were very cognizant of when we wrote this policy, not wanting to burden the citizens because county employees are burdened by having to take unpaid time off. I'll just give you a for instance on that. When the state of Wisconsin back in 2009 instituted a furlough policy, they implemented it on federal holidays that weren't state holidays. So Columbus Day as an example. all of those furloughs happened simultaneously, and so the doors of the state offices were closed. I felt like that is an undue burden on the citizens. It's hard enough to get into government offices to begin with for working people. Then if we put the burden on them too of closing on days like that, I felt it was unnecessary. And then in the event of some of the very small departments, on a case-by-case basis, if they absolutely can't make it work, this gives a little bit of flexibility in the policy to address that.
Okay, I guess just a comment is if an employee has vacation or PTO that they want to take off, or they're sick, there are those similar absence, you know, in that office. So I just want to make sure it's kind of fair amongst county staff as well. That's just my comment.
Okay, thank you. Any other supervisors that have questions? Supervisor Gallus, hand up or no?
He did.
Mr.
Gallus should be able to talk.
Supervisor Gallus? Supervisor Gallus, are you trying to speak?
We'll just leave him and go to Josh.
Okay. Who's up next? Josh. Josh? Sorry.
No, that's just fine. If Supervisor Gallett starts to speak, I'll just stop. I just want to reiterate with this policy that it is a work in progress. We're trying to make our systems now work with this work within this policy, and you can imagine putting a program like this in place for the first time. As far as I understand it, in our county's history, there's going to be some hiccups to work through. So there may need to be some tweaks as we go along. But once again, what I'm really asking for is that the legislative branch and the executive branch are standing together saying, yes, this is conceptually the right thing to do. You know, if we have to tweak exactly how the overall savings happens or how the furlough days work or those types of things, it's separate from holistically, we agree that this is a good approach and sooner rather than later kind of concept. Just wanted to make that clear.
Okay. All right. Is there any further discussion then? All right. We already have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next on the agenda is the property tax due date, Act 185. And I assume Josh, you're going to be talking about that a bit?
No, there's.
We're not.
Oops, sorry, I'm double clicking instead of single clicking. Yes, I can speak to this. So everybody has a bit of a summary in their packet, is my understanding. Is that correct?
The intention is for them to hear what we're doing and recommend us draft a resolution. So we can't have a motion until they hear what's going on. They were going to recommend based on what Josh presents.
On the tax. Right. Okay. Sorry, continue.
Okay. All right. So I'm assuming everybody has a basic understanding of what we're talking about here. Essentially, Act 185 allows for counties to be able to remove penalty and interest payments on property tax payments that are due July 31st. So the payment by law is still due July 31st, but penalties and interests, if we approve ultimately a resolution of this variety, would be postponed until October 1st. There's some important things for you to understand mechanically with how this works, and they have an impact on the county. If you're going to approve this, you know, I think it makes good sense for the taxpayer, but for the tax collector, here's the risk. And right now, by the way, the county is the exclusive tax collector in this scenario. Municipalities are no longer collecting taxes for the balance of the year. So what that means is if we approve a resolution of this variety, we need to work through how exactly the mechanics work, the timing of collecting the money, the timing of paying out the other municipalities. Because right now, being the only tax collector, typically Washington County would collect all remaining property tax balances. It would come to the county July 31st, and on August 20th, the county treasurer would then turn around and send cash payments to the municipalities and taxing jurisdictions like school districts to settle out their full property tax payments. In this particular case, if we decide to postpone penalty interest, there's a high likelihood that we are also postponing collections, practically speaking, and therefore the amount of money that we'll have on hand in order to redistribute back to those municipalities will be lower. The county will take on that short-term burden in one way, shape, or form. And so you should understand that there's a possibility, depending on how we administer this program, ranging from millions of dollars to possibly, I suppose, tens of millions of dollars that we would hold in the short term. Now, it would be all payable to us, meaning we'd eventually get it, but there might be some short-term struggles. Really, I think the policy question for the board is, do you want to provide, in essence, property tax postponement all the way until October 1st? That's really what we're asking you for. And then the mechanics being, just understand if you do that, we've got to work through how and when the money comes in so that we ensure that we have sufficient cash flow for our operation and that municipalities and other taxing jurisdictions have sufficient cash flow. If you don't care too much about how that works, then I would say to you, don't worry about it. If you're interested, we can try to answer some questions. But rather than bore you with the mechanics of how money comes in and comes out, basically just that's what this resolution is intending to do. It's intending to give the taxpayer just a little bit of relief. And it truly is just a little bit of relief.
Supervisor Mahalik.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just making sure that I fully understand this. Right now, it's July 31st. We would be moving it to October 1st. So what we're truly doing is just giving them August and September. So approximately a 60-day or 2-month deferral just on penalties and interest. That's really what we're looking to do. We're not doing anything other than that, but giving them a 60-day breather on this without fear of incurring additional costs. And I do have a quick follow-up question on that.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Actually, and I apologize, not even a question. I would just say, given your affirmative on the points that I brought, if you're looking for something, Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve or move. Again, I would put in the verbiage that the County Executive Committee in body assembled supports the concept of taking the taxes owed by July 31st and moving that to October 1st, so thereby eliminating any interest or penalty fees due to the COVID-19 pandemic, or words to that effect, wordsmithing by our illustrious county attorney, Brad Stern.
You can wordsmith that one.
I will come up with something glorious.
Something glorious, okay. Do I hear a second? Do I hear a second? Dennis?
And I got in regards to that, I don't know that I would necessarily word it that you want people to delay it till October. No. We want people to pay their taxes if they can, but I think we should be careful, because as soon as you you put the moratorium on the electric bills, and a lot of people take advantage of that and don't pay them until April, and then they can't afford to pay them. So I think we want to make sure that the public does understand that if you're going to be a little late, it's okay. You're not going to get interest or penalty. However, your taxes are still due, and try and work it in the verbiage that way so that they should make an effort to try and pay their taxes on time if they can, in order to not fall behind on what they're doing.
Supervisor Schleif?
Again, excuse the engineer wanting to understand everything, but I personally pay my taxes in December every year. And I know most of my friends do. So really, what percentage of the population waits until the end of July to pay their second half of their taxes?
I couldn't give you a specific percentage of the population, but I can tell you it's about just under $50 million worth. So it's a significant sum. And I know some businesses, as an example, do it for the purposes of their own cash flow. They only pay part of it in the front and they pay the other half in July. The other thing to understand, and we'll write this into the policy, it's very, very wonky. But the other thing to keep in mind is the state law allows us to use this postponement policy to apply to hardships, either specific or general. The basic guidance we've gotten from WCA is that they suggest just doing a general blanket, because if you do a very specific, to try to administer that is going to be very, very difficult, of course. And so this kind of gets to what I think you're asking, Supervisor Schleif, and that is, this is a blanket approach now that, we don't have an Amazon. If we had Amazon in Washington County, Amazon could take advantage of. And then, of course, they don't need to take advantage of it, but they could. And so we anticipate there will be some of that. But it's not as big of a number as the January 31st date, but it's still significant.
Thank you.
Supervisor Mahalik?
Thank you. Just to comment on the comments of Supervisor Kelling, I do realize that it may look on the surface that a lot of people would take advantage of it. I'm assuming it might be more struggling businesses or those people who might really be unemployed and have it. Of course, here in the city of Hartford, we do run our own utility through WPPI. We do our own billing, only because he made reference to it. We do not have, it's in the single digits, the number of people who actually take advantage of the fact that you can't turn their power off after, I believe it's November 1st going through into April. So I'm not going to say it's not going to happen, but I believe that the percentages would probably mirror what we see every year in the city of Hartford. So I don't anticipate it to be very large.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, hearing none.
Mr. Chairman, can I just clarify one thing, please?
Sure.
So I just want to make sure that everybody's aware of this, especially since Supervisor Mahalik, Mayor Mahalik is here as well, that one of the procedures under Act 185 requires that if the county is going to proceed with this, that the municipalities also pass resolutions. There's some ambiguity and maybe Brad can speak to this if he feels the need, but there's some ambiguity with regard to whether or not those municipal resolutions really mean anything. I think they're a positive thing in that we're all on the same page and we all, think this is the right thing to do. But because the county is the sole tax collector right now, it doesn't appear as though there's any practical implication for municipalities approving or denying. And I spoke with the county treasurer about this yesterday, County Treasurer Merton, and her conversations with the County Treasurers Association indicates the same. So what I'm saying to you is, if you direct us to do this, we'll begin that process. And then we're going to also reach out to the municipalities and ask them to pass a similar resolution. And just so you're aware of that. And there's some technical aspects to how checks are cut back to the municipalities and things of that nature. But it is one component that you should know about if you choose to do this, that there's some degree of collaboration that will be needed with municipalities.
Just want to check, Supervisor Dice, did you come back on? I have you unmuted and you're on a phone.
Supervisor Dice, are you still? All right, Supervisor
Can you
Mahal.
hear me?
Oh, yeah, we can hear you.
All right,
Okay,
you're back.
Oh,
make sure that you're back on, because you had dropped
yeah,
off.
I have been on. I've listened to everything, so I'm good to go.
Okay, awesome. Cool. Supervisor Mahalik.
Thank you. Just wanted to make a quick request from County Executive Showman. When you do what you're talking about regarding contacting the municipalities, my request, if you would please, is to, because the county clerk is, or the city clerks are following this, or village or town, if you would send, what we're doing to them, if you would please copy the administrator of all of the cities, villages, towns, and the either the mayor, the town chairman, or the village president. So we would all have language that you would be suggesting regarding what we're doing, what we would be attempting to pass through our individual boards, and that would really be appreciated.
Yes, certainly we can do that. The other thing that I plan to do was tomorrow, every Friday, we have a phone call with elected officials as regard to COVID-19. I plan to bring this issue up at that phone call as well. So we'll do both. We'll send a electronic communication to everybody, as well as bring it up at the phone call tomorrow.
Great, thank you.
This is Chris. I have one comment. I know there's a motion on the floor. However, in the paperwork we received, it was just asked for a consensus to recommend a resolution be drafted. Is that all we really want to do this morning, or do we want this motion to continue?
I'll defer to Brad on that one.
But you go ahead, I would pass the motion and let us on the back end figure out how mechanically to put it together. By the time we get to the board, we'll have those answers.
Is that sufficient, Supervisor Dice?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Supervisor Kelly, do you have a question?
No, sir.
You're just waving your arms. Hi.
No, I was trying to hit the mute button. I got a lot of noise in the background. We're loading trucks.
Okay. All right. Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Next meeting date is, Mary, did you read it off again?
May 20th at 4:30 p.m. That's Wednesday, May 20th at 4:30 p.m.
Okay. Seeing we have conducted all our business, we are hereby adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a good day, everybody.